Okay, Monday, the 22nd of April, 2024, and welcome to the week ahead brought to you by Financial Juice, a fantastic squawk service, and Earn to Trade, the best place to get funded as a trader. All right, so we've seen quite a bit of selling coming in there last week, pretty early on, to be honest, in the VWAP report. I had identified a lot of really nice areas that did trade well last week. But I suppose I was eyeing up what would be a slow week on the markets until we got to that jobless figure on the Thursday. But no chance. We came in Monday, little test on the weekly p-val for SPOOs, and then we jumped on the slip and slide down, down, down. So below currently yearly VWAP at the moment. However, let's get over to a couple of the headlines and, well, not headlines, but a couple of things I want to look at here this week. And we're going to kind of kick off with the VWAP report, which is out on Substack. So this is for this week, published this last night. Just really, the headline on this VWAP report is bounce or die, or bounce then die. But either which way, I think these markets are going to try and die. Now, the only thing that can kind of counter that is that we have kind of come down to slightly cheap areas on equities. For example, if we look at like the S&P here, on this, and hopefully you guys can see this. Yeah, you can. Really QP val down the bottom here. It's what, 48.40, something like that. I think this needs to trade right now. Is it going to get down there this week? Maybe not. But the point being is that there are dip buyers. They're here. We don't have talk of out of the Fed or the FOMC that the rate cuts are just not happening. There's no definite line that there's no rate cuts to happen this year. So there will be a certain amount of dip buying. Point in case, Nvidia was down 10% on Friday. So you got to imagine there are some people who are going to try and buy that dip, get a bit of a relief rally. Added to this, concept of we're selling down, we should continue to sell down. I think we should technically continue to sell down. Is that there's a lot of big boy earnings coming this week, right? And so we've got Microsoft, Google, Meta, Visa, Chevron, Tesla, Merck. What else we are to IBM, GE, Intel, Boeing. Quite a few in here, guys, right? So ultimately, it's going to be a bit of a rock and roll week in terms of volatility, I think. And so looking at the actual calendar, there's nothing happening today. As we look through the rest of the week, manufacturing tomorrow, services PMIs, manufacturing PMIs tomorrow, new home sales at 3, then Wednesday, usual gig, crude oil, inventories. Thursday is the big one, really, for data for GDP, quarter on quarter out of the US, and the initial jobless claims, but also on the earnings picture. So if we kind of slip over here, we'll have a look at the earnings now in a second, but you've got like Intel, Google, what else do we have in here? Well, Gilead actually is on the docket there, but Microsoft. Big day on Thursday, and then Friday, the core PC price index and headline PC price index to come on Friday. So really, probably going to see a bit of slow action today. Might be a nice day to kind of get the nails done, or I don't know, get your highlights, your frosted tips done. I don't know what people do when they're not on the markets, but you can see the scope of the week, and I'll post a link to this here in the description below. All right, just a couple of things. I like to follow Torsten Schlock out of Apollo Academy, and I really like this kind of look forward at the S&P forward earnings expectations, right? So this is the 12-month forward. Now, what you can see here is that earnings are set to be pretty strong, and why not, right? The economic indicators have been good. They have been strong. Jobless is not rising at all. And the forward earnings can stay firm. And so with that, and with the scope of earnings to come this week, you're going to kind of have to imagine that, well, surely the market's going to try and by strength on the earnings pictures, right? And sustained strength on this 12-month forward EPS, right, on the S&P 500. But it's another thing saying that versus making money trading that, right? We're going to get over the charts in a minute and kind of see where potentially the SPOOs, for example, might fail. But I'll post a link to this here. I really love just the bite-size blog that they run in Apollo Academy. And then just noting, the US is the biggest oil producer in the world at the moment. We scroll down here, look at these charts. We're currently running at about 12.9 million barrels of the black gold here and per day. So, this is really fantastic. I think this topped out all time at about 13.4 mil a couple of years ago. I can't recall precisely, but either which way, they're up here. Now, what's happening behind the closed doors of that 12.9 figure, which is just coming in above Russia at 10.1 and Saudi at 9.7, right? What's behind the doors there is that these production levels have been, for the last kind of 12 months, have been sustained by tapping into drilling but uncompleted wells. Now what's happening is that all that tapping into all those kind of very accessible reserves all that tapping is now kind of tightening up a little bit. And so a lot of these producers are now going to have to drill new wells but uncompleted to keep this picture going. The thing with fracking and shale is that it has a really short runoff rate. So when you get in there into a shale well and you tap it and it starts flowing, if it was a normal sort of rotary accessed reservoir, normal drilling, the ramp down, the long tail life of those reservoirs could be like 20, 30, 50 years, right? But, they have to re-inject certain sort of pressure in to keep the flow rate going, all this sort of stuff. It's called hole stimulation. Stop sniggering down the back, please. The artificial lifting, all this sort of stuff, right? But the point is that with a lot of these drilled but uncompleted now being tapped, and then people will look to the shale industry to pick up the slack, and keep them at the 12.9. Well, the runoff on a shale well could be like 3 years. You get in there, you start the well flowing, and then within 3 years, you're not even pulling like 10% out of what you were on day one. So I see this picture in the broader breadth of time. I think, you might not see US oil production at these levels in about 3 years' time, but either which way, any weakness that you see on that 12.9 figure over the coming months is going to actually feed into a tighter supply picture for oil, and that's why we are long some energy stocks on this desk. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to look at the couple of these charts here, these markets. So we're going to look at dollar, we're going to look at Bitcoin for a second, we're going to look at S&P, gold, and oil. All right, so let's get into it and look at the Dixie here on the daily. So yeah, we're seeing this breakout continue here essentially from last week. We were looking at this breakout to hit on this 106.24s, this sort of point of control in this whole area over here, right? This whole spot right here when we were trading about September, October last year. So this is kind of the area we're moving up through, and that is the point of control for that area at 106.24s. And so now, it's continuation up to the top of the value area here, which would be about 106.97s, but ultimately the target up here is the 107.38s and above, right? So, can we do that? Yeah, we can. And what would be the catalyst for that? Well, probably, Russia getting involved in the Middle East, maybe something, Iran saying, that's it, gloves are off, we're attacking nuclear facilities in Israel, or, just something that makes this a sustained risk for the Middle Eastern conflict, or indeed a re-escalation of the Russian situation. All right, but nonetheless, technically, that's what we're looking at here. So with that, you're going to see the euro down, and we right on cue, we have that here hitting into the weekly p-val any moment now, and it can go a lot further, seeming as what we just saw on the Dixie. All right, looking at Bitcoin, so we've had the rapture or the halving or whatever they call it, and we are almost picking up those bars on yearly VWAP down here, right? But no cigar just yet. So I think if we reverse back up here, Y plus one, 68,896 on Bitcoin. We should reverse back down and hit into this area here, this yearly VWAP to pick up buyers to then keep going up on Bitcoin. Just thought I'd monitor or mark that card for you guys. All right, on the S&P 500, looked at levels here on the week, the VWAP report and the week assessment for that, and I think with the earnings picture set to potentially bring out some good earnings for a lot of these bigwig companies. If we get positive earnings, I think we're going to rip back up on the SPOOs. Definitely the Q minus one. Well, first of all, yearly VWAP is here, so we're trying to baseline the market at the moment. The last two auctions here on the prior all-time high, back adjusted 50/31s, but really that would be a poke towards yearly VWAP. So it's a quiet day today, not much on the cards. Let's see how they're going to hit Tesla today and earnings out of Tesla tomorrow after the market. But if they're positive, we could see a bounce rally on the SPOOs. So look out for interactions at yearly VWAP down here, or sorry, up here. The quarterly minus 150, 5083s even, and then if we have an exceptional rally back up to test on the QPVAH, that'll be 5176s. This is the trade I'm looking for a short on that one. That would be lovely. The risk might not be that tight around the Q minus one, which just on the 30-minute you see coming in just here. So I think an initial touch here, it will probably fade back down. And then sort of rally to move back up, and see that QPVH way up here. All right, I would rather take this trade as long as we have not traded the QP val first. All right, so some big far areas off, right? But I'm trading from an area of safety. If we don't get anything like a move and a rotation back through this weekly PVA structure, if it just kind of fails at the weekly or the yearly VWAP and then comes back below here, kind of this, and I'd be looking for a short here and then down. But I think the week is going to be long. Wednesday trade is going to be interesting. Thursday's trade and Friday's trade is going to be interesting. So I think there's lots of opportunities for those who wait for good areas to trade on the SPOOs. Gold, the dollar is set to move a lot higher, and gold has been getting away with it even under a stronger dollar environment. But what I was talking about earlier is that we're looking at this area here, 2345s. I know the writing is a bit small here, but 2345s for this market to retest. It's a high volume node area. And it's actually where we closed on the futures on the 4th of April this year, right? So, should we get below here, just watch out for the kind of bit of selling. We pull back and then sellers get on board here and then drive us back down. And in that case, you're going to be looking at this other high volume node trade, the 2312s, all right? But until we get a specific trade, I don't see selling coming in, being a nice trade. What I would like to get is a rally up against that weekly VWAP, currently at 2372's confluent, and then we break down, but might not get that. We might not get that. Right. So that's gold, and here on oil, well, we've been looking at this just deflating and deflating on the back of no continued risk in the Middle East, which I've talked about in the weekly VWAP report. So look, I think its target's down, Q, PVAH, 7961s. Where could you sell this thing? Well, on a pullback onto weekly P-val, which would be just at confluent with the yearly plus one now. Sorry, is that yearly plus one? Just let me... I think it is, should be, it is not, that is higher. There we go. And we'll just kind of hide that again here. Yeah, so I think, look, ultimately we're coming down to here. So if you want to get on that short, where's a good place? Well, weekly P-val, 22s. Just zoom in here. Yeah, 82.22s here for a short down. I think under an exceptional headline risk now, we could go to yearly PVH 83.64s and then bring in some selling, like a fade on that move, similar to what we got here on Friday, which hit into, on that Iranian explosion in Iran, basically, based on what an Israeli attack could have been. That was the 2013 low, 85.61s, that topped that out, and then we just reversed the entire day and then some. So, yeah, look, there's a lot of jawboning going on here. Ultimately, a safe place to get involved for me would be yearly VWAP, which is 78.24s. I know probably none of the bulls want to hear that, but they should, because you're picking up some really big volume buying here, I would imagine. Notwithstanding Netanyahu resigning from office, then I think probably 76s by that point. But ultimately, some nice areas to trade on oil this week. All right. Okay, that's it. All right. Have a great session. Keep it tight, and I'll talk to you next week. Cheers.